on the topic surrounding mental illness and trauma, there are conversations that surround physical safety. For example, if someone's experiencing a mental health crisis, a mental health training will tell you that it is your responsibility to assess whether or not that person is a harm to themselves or others. And in case of trauma through abuse, there is concern about removing someone from a specific environment or a certain situation to mitigate that abuse. And while those elements of physical safety are extremely important for someone who's living with a mental illness, going through a crisis, or has experienced trauma and is trying to heal, we don't talk enough about the impact of emotional safety. And as leaders, we have to ask ourselves if we're creating a relationship and connection and environment that allows someone to truly feel emotionally safe. But what exactly is emotional safety? Hi, I'm your host, Kaitlyn Daniel, creator of Sci-Fi Leadership, and if you're new here, welcome. I specialize in empowering leaders as they navigate how to best support mental health and well-being in our schools. Today's episode, we're exploring what is emotional safety and why, as school leaders, should we prioritize emotional safety in our school communities. Let's get started. The term emotional safety is often misunderstood and is conflated to physical safety. Often when we refer to physical safety, it is the feeling of walking into a room and being secure and feeling abstractly safe. And although the understanding of someone's physical safety varies from person to person, emotional safety might vary even more. For those living with a mental illness or has experienced trauma in the past or present, emotional safety has a huge impact on mental health and well-being of that individual. In the example I used at the beginning of someone going through a mental health crisis, and a mental health training is going to tell you to make sure that it is your responsibility to make sure that that person is no longer a harm to themselves or others. But what happens after that person is no longer in crisis? Were there triggers in their environment or the relationships and conversations that they were having with people around them that were triggering or causing distress that led to a mental health crisis? It's important to identify what barriers affect Swiss individuals, which is why it's important to distinguish the difference between having physical safety and working towards emotional safety. Both are extremely important, but for this video, let's focus on emotional safety. So what is emotional safety? Emotional safety is a feeling within oneself of safety and security. It is whether or not they feel like they can be their authentic selves in an environment or a conversation with someone. And remember, emotional safety can often be conflated to things that we see physically in an environment, which I would argue goes more towards feeling physically safe and secure within an environment. For instance, if you're a leader and you think of emotional safety, you might think of your office or a classroom if you're a teacher. And you might think of the physical elements in that classroom, such as whether or not the walls are warm and inviting, whether or not there are poster representations around the room of your students, yourself, and in the curriculum that you provide for your kiddos. And if you're a leader, you might be thinking of whether or not your office is inviting. Do you have an open office? Is there a chair? Is the chair comfy? Is there blankets? Did you light a candle? Is the environment warm? These are physical elements that can contribute to someone's emotional safety. However, I would argue if someone is feeling emotionally unsafe from the relationship that we have with you or the power dynamic between you and that other person has an imbalance, that person might not feel emotionally safe in the workplace or in the classroom or with you. And when that happens, they're not going to feel physically safe either, which is why we need to look at both. But to boil it down, emotional safety doesn't really have a solid definition. Instead, It's a feeling of security and safety, and it's foundational in relationships. So it can be your relationship within yourself, your relationship with a teacher, or a relationship with a student or staff member. Your relationship with someone, even in a professional capacity, is foundational to someone else's emotional safety. The benefits of emotional safety is that it allows someone in your presence to feel valued and that they are valuable. They feel like you value them as a person, as a member of the community, and as someone who is contributing to your school community. Emotional safety also allows someone to be their authentic self. Yes, we can all try to be our authentic selves at home, but we should be able to be our authentic selves in the workplace as well. We should be able to express our thoughts and feelings to our leaders and to our colleagues without feeling judged. Another benefit of emotional safety is that it allows someone to feel seen, heard, and understood. And I know that's a lot to ask in the workplace, and I'm not saying we have to be perfect at it, but as a leader, a teacher, or a student should be able to come to you to be able to feel seen, heard, and understood as they share their experiences and emotions with you. Remember, relationships are the foundation of emotional safety. Without these relationships, emotional safety might be weak or imbalanced. So focus on strengthening your relationships with others through trust, communication, empathy, and understanding. Because when we don't have emotional safety in our homes, in the workplace, or in the classroom, we're going to be navigating those spaces in survival mode. A lack of emotional safety for anyone, but especially those who are struggling with their mental health currently, might be thrown into distress and survival mode, which causes them to enter fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when you're in one of these survival mode states, you're not really there. Because without a sense of safety, you can't be there to do your job, and you can't be there to learn. Which is why emotional safety is so important. Which is why for school leaders, I encourage you to prioritize emotional safety in your school communities. And to get started, it starts with you. Because emotional safety starts from within. You have to build emotional safety and capacity within yourself. When you're with your own thoughts and in your own space, do you feel like you are valued and valuable? Do you feel like you are understood and seen by yourself and others? Do you feel like you are your authentic self? If you're unsure how to answer these questions about yourself, you might not have a strong sense of emotional safety. And so it's good to start from within. Because emotional safety, like all relationships, once they're strengthened and communication and trust are established, it spreads from person to person. If you are not an emotionally safe person to yourself, you're not going to be an emotionally safe person for someone else. Emotional safety is a topic that we need to talk more about because it's different than things like emotional regulation or emotional intelligence. All right, if you'd like to see more educational mental health content for school leadership, please subscribe to join this amazing community here on YouTube. Until next time, happy practicing. Take care.